Hello and welcome to Retro Racing Reviews. If you've not already checked out the reviews on the blog, I'd highly recommend you have a quick look at those, because that gives you some idea of what I'm trying to aim for with this video series. We're going to be taking a look at old driving games across anything I can get my hands on, together with looking at old cars, the history of F1 in particular, and anything else that takes my fancy. We're going into project cars here, and you'll see I've turned off all the driving assists and the like, because we're going to be taking a genuine classic out on the track today. That's the Lotus 72D. This car was first campaigned in 1970 originally, and by the time we get around to 1973, it's in D-spec format. Basically, slick tyres, wider track, and various other refinements to keep it current. The 72 is one of the most successful Grand Prix cars of all time, and had a career that spanned 6 years, which is pretty remarkable, given most modern F1 cars tend to get a season or two at most, and pretty much by the end of the season aren't even the same car as they started out. So we're going to go to the garage just to firstly check out the car. You'll see there that the liveries in project cars are reminiscent of what they would have been at the time, but obviously not fully authentic due to licensing issues and the like. We're going to be turning off all of the driver aids, so we're going to be losing traction control, stability control, and everything else. Only thing I'm going to be keeping hold of is the automatic clutch. Just because if I'm going to be manually shifting with all of the aids turned off, I at least don't want to have to worry about 3 pedals at the same time. So we're trying to go full on sim, so just allow me the automatic clutch. It's not much to ask for. So we're going to go back and go to Brands Hatch. We're going to go with a full Grand Prix circuit rather than the club circuit, just because there's more variety there. And the last time Brands Hatch was used as a Grand Prix circuit was back in 1985, where Nigel Mansell won the European Grand Prix. Silverstone and occasionally Donington Park have been used since then, mostly Silverstone, although Donington Park did again host the European Grand Prix back in 1993. So we're off on our way out of the pits, and you'll see instantly the wedge of the front of the Lotus 72. It's a very unique design even to this day, because nobody really got it to work in the same way that Lotus did. This sort of design held from the early 70s all the way through to probably the mid to late 70s, where the cars went with a more ground effect sort of approach, and had bigger side pods. We're just warming up the tyres here. You'll see in the bottom right hand corner they're currently blue, which means they're fresh out the wrappers effectively. Now you'll just, I'm struggling a little bit with trying to keep the car on the straight and narrow, simply because the rear track is wider than the front track by some margin. So you stick the rear wheel off the circuit onto the rumble strip, and it will drag literally the rest of the car with it. That was why you saw me be unable to get off the curbs without letting the car straighten up and sort itself out. We've gone down the back straight, and we're now going for the double right-hander. A little bit of oversteer, corrected it, held it, up the hill to Dingledell, blind corner. You've got to be really careful there, because if you don't at least get someone at the apex, you're just going to run straight out of road. And we're now going to head under the bridge. You'll see the club circuit on the right hand side, and we'll go through the final turn, clearways, onto the start finish straight. It's not really a straight, it's more like a very, very gentle curve round to the right before getting to the crest of the hill and then trying to work out where your angle of attack is for paddock hill bend. One of the best corners on any track, not just in the UK but in the world. It's a bit like the corkscrew in Laguna Seca in the US. It's just a fantastic spectacle, and going through it and getting it right is very, very satisfying. Again, you'll see round the car wide there, and this corner is Surtees. Very hard to know when to get the power on because you're constantly turning and driving uphill, and as with all of this, it's very, very easy to be a bit over enthusiastic with the power, spin those big rear tyres up and either get a gobload of oversteer or just simply end up powering off the circuit. I've heard the 72 be described as one of the less drivable cars in Project Cars' portfolio, but overall it's not going too badly. Not going too badly at all. Oh, I spoke too soon. Yeah, that I think I know why that happened. Let me just get back up and running, and I think it's worth at this stage just grabbing a quick replay of that. I'll just pause the game, go to the replay. That's not it, that's me from a previous lap when I got a bit over enthusiastic. So let's just wind it on a little bit, just again so you can see how good Project Cars looks from the outside. So I'm just dropping into the dip and then coming up to Dingledell. Take that relatively well, enjoyed that. That was satisfying because it all hooked up properly. Now you'll see me go in there, it's all looking good, drop a rear wheel, and as I spin the tyres up to accelerate away, it just pulls the car off and sends me hurtling into the barrier. Now if I had full damage on, that would be left front gone, end of race, and I'm only a couple of laps in, so it just gives you an example of how difficult these cars are to drive. So I'm going to crack on with this and see how I can do. So again, looking at the turning point for Paddock Hill, I'm having to have several bites at it because I'm trying to get the right line. I don't push the curbs, just as I say, because of the wide rear tyres. Out of the hairpin druids, brilliant place to watch. People love crashing there, nice and low speed as well, so if you do see an accident, you can already be guaranteed that everybody will mostly be okay, and it's just bruised prides and a lot of bent metal. Up out of Surtees, currently ahead of my split time. This was the straight, just going under the bridge of where Johnny Herbert had his massive accident in an F3000 race in 1988. He wasn't the only British driver to suffer a really serious injury around that sort of time, because even though fatalities in Grand Prix racing certainly haven't been a thing since 1982, the cars were definitely far less safe than they are today, and Johnny Herbert went on to have a good solid Grand Prix career, but given the extent of the injuries he suffered, who knows what he might have been able to do had he been fully fit when he became an F1 driver. Martin Donnelly, a very similar thing. He was driving a Lotus, obviously a much more sophisticated version of what we're dealing with here. But he suffered horrible injuries in 1990 at Jerez, and although he recovered and is now leading full and active life, he couldn't. His injuries meant that he couldn't get out of the car fast enough to be able to then come back and do competitive single-seater racing, which is a massive shame, and it does feel like there was a lost generation of British drivers who really deserved a hell of a lot more than they ended up with. When you consider that Damon Hill was only ever probably a top 6 driver by comparison to his peers, and he went on to become world champion, it really does give an idea as to the level of talent that we had in the British motor racing scene at the time. A bit like the England football team, really. all of the players individually are pretty good, and you're thinking, well, why can't the team win more than it has done, or anything at all? And then you look at a combination of circumstances and bad luck, and then you think of what might have been. So I've managed to go around a lap of the track here while not really talking an awful lot about the car itself and the way it's handling. Without the ABS on, I'm trying to grab the brake as late as I can, but you'll see that it just leaves the car running that little bit too wide, certainly just up a paddock hill bend. And it's all really just a case of keeping everything nice and smooth, trying to avoid those high curves. There is a rumble strip that you can run over there, but it's always difficult to know when you're safe to come back onto the track. It's just the kind of thing where you've got one wheel on the tarmac, one wheel on an uneven surface, just the kind of thing with a car like the 72 that overall is sophisticated for its day, but it's not particularly, well, high-tech, should I put it. It's not got anything like a limited slip differential. As you can see by the fact that I'm still getting oversteer out of the thing. So dropping down into the final corner before we hit the straight to go under the bridge and into the long sweeping right-hander. Okay, so I had to hit a cone at some point. It's compulsory if you're doing a driving game and you don't run over at least one cone on the travels, you're doing something badly wrong. You see they're taking a slightly different line through paddock. You can go around that as many times as you want to, and you'll take probably a different line every single time. Now, I'm just going to show you a few outside shots of the 72, so you can see the full wedge shape, obviously without deliberately running myself off the road as a result. And you can just see from looking at it behind the width of the rear track compared to the front tyres. So it does make it challenging because you're never quite sure how wide you are in that regard. And you see, that time I deliberately put the tyres onto the grass to show you how it unsettles the car when they're leaving the corner under acceleration. So if you're going to drive the 72 in this game, or indeed in any other driving game that it's featured in, be careful with it, because it will bite back. Seriously, it nearly did there as well. You see it get unsettled as you put the rear tyres on different surfaces. In that case, that was the curb. But overall, it's it will bite back. It will try and have a go at throwing you into the wall, as it's done for me already. But it will spin the tyre at 100 mile an hour in third gear, and again at 115. But it is remarkably controllable given the circumstances. One of the things with Paddock Hill, as you probably saw from outside of the car, is that Brands isn't a particularly smooth circuit at the best of times, and you'll see that there's a bit of uneven road on the run-up, so when you're trying to brake, the car is also sort of bouncing across the bumps. It's not delivering the the braking evenly. That does lead to more lockups. You get more lockups onto the bumpier circuits. So it's very much a case of lots of practice. Take it easy to start off with, and just keep on putting lap after lap in until you get the hang of it. I love this car. It's fantastic. I'll go into the history of this in my second video, which will be again part one of a series I'll be doing on certain noteworthy cars. Most of the ones I can get as modifications for Assetto Corsa, R-Factor, R-Factor 2, and things like that. So if there's not really a mod for it, I'll have to base my material around what I can actually get to drive and get to work. The retro review is going to be anything I can get my hands on. I will make sure that wherever possible I have the original discs cartridges or whatever before I go ahead and do a review. If it's genuinely not possible, I will try and indicate as such, but the idea will very much be old stuff from my game collection that I really enjoyed at the time and want to share, along with some stuff I found out at a later stage and have somehow managed to get working again on either an old console or a PC. Initially I'm going to start off with PC based games, and once I've got a capture card for the Xbox, PlayStation and the like, I'll have a go at uploading some footage from that. Definitely want to cover things like the Project Gotham racing series, Gran Turismo and similar, so hopefully we'll have quite a lot of fun digging into what made all of those games special, what made them worth your time even today if you can get hold of an old console. Certainly a retrospective of the Gran Turismo series would be something I'd love to have a crack at, especially now they've announced Gran Turismo Sport PS4. So taking the car across the line for the final time, it's great to be able to drive such a beautiful machine. Check out the next post and hopefully let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks ever so much for watching. I've been James Allen. No, not that one. If you're listening, I'd love to work with you. It'd be brilliant. But other than that, signing off from there.